Call the December meeting of the Deschutes Public Library District Board to order. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see such a packed house, and welcome to everybody online. Our first order of business is the consent agenda, which consists of our November 12th meeting minutes and district disbursements. Have people had a chance to review those items? Are there any additions or corrections or questions? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the consent agenda. I second it.
Okay, Todd, do you want to call the roll?
Yes. Laura.
Aye.
And Aaron.
Aye.
And Betsy.
Aye.
And Malcolm.
And aye.
And Michelle.
Aye.
Okay.
All right. So we're now on to the public comment section of our meeting. The board is committed to hearing from the public, and we are pleased that you have taken the time to come and speak with us today. We ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And while we will not directly respond to public comments or engage in dialogue with speakers, we seriously consider input from the public. Public comments at meetings is one important way the board receives feedback, and it enables us to do our job of formulating policies to govern the district. And thanks for coming and speaking today.
We have Jack Hammond for some.
So-
Where would you like me to stand, or what would you?
Whatever you
Where
feel
does it
like,
want to
yeah,
stand?
whatever, yeah.
You got my name, it's Jack Hammond, I'm here with my wife Leslie, we live here in Bend on the west side, which is relevant to the fact that I'd like to address an issue you're gonna be dealing with, end of your agenda tonight. It's the decision on temporary services in Bend, which is an issue really dear to our hearts. I am the son of 2 immigrants, and mom and dad each came when they were children. Eventually became Americans. Dad built schools in his career. Mom was a school teacher her whole career. And mom in particular was someone who came with absolutely no resources. They escaped the Nazis and lived in an extraordinarily poor neighborhood in New York City and had the greatest gift in the world. She had a library card, and that inspired this amazing life and career that not only had her influence amazing number of children, but she brought her son, 2 sons, my brother and I, to the library every single week. 50 years ago, Leslie and I were married, and she's a far more avid and a great reader than I am. And we raised our son and our daughter that way, and now we have 3 grandchildren who are all extraordinary readers. Right across the street over here at Bend, as you probably know, you get about 60% of all of your visits of the entire Deschutes County Library system. The latest numbers I saw was about 300,000 out of the 500,000. At this moment, as I understand it, there are about 2,000 books on the check-in, check-out shelf that you can do online. That new central library for a whole lot of us in Bend, those of us on this side of the river and further into the hills, is a long way. And we've explored going over there a couple different ways. I should tell you something that won't surprise you is that we still in this wonderful community don't have much of a public transit system. And so when you go on the app, it says it would take an hour from our house. Now we're told there's going to be a few more lines there when the library opens. Even so, good weather, an hour, that's a pretty good spot. We're avid bicyclists, and I should say before I go on, I sent a note and I got an incredibly nice response back, both from Ms. Malkin and then eventually from Mr. Dunkelberg before I was presenting today. I wanted to thank you for that. I should have done that first. The bicycle trip was as we expected. It's a very difficult trip. We're pretty skilled bicyclists, but we still don't have the infrastructure in Bend to make it safe or easy. And finally, we're lucky enough to have cars. But I think, again, something you all know is that transit going east to west, no matter who it is, them coming over here, us going over there. In Bend, we're just not there yet. There was a big thing in the bulletin today, if you saw it, about that very topic. And so the truth is, no matter how I feel about it, there's gonna be a whole lot of us who are gonna be unable during that 1 year when our beloved library is gonna be closed, that we're gonna have a real hard time getting over there. And I can't imagine life without going to the library, to be honest. And so, and I should also mention, one disadvantage of that for everybody collectively, unless something changes, a lot of really great books, I think, are not going to be turned in that 3-week period, because people just won't be able to get over there. And you're gonna have a backlog of a lot of those popular books. I mean, you guys give a lot of leniency on that. I try never to abuse it, but even so, you know, the ability to be able to return a book, especially in bad weather, is gonna be a bigger and bigger deal for Bendites. I gotta be honest, when I think about the closures of this building, what really comes to mind first is that on our weekly trips here, we're often here during those family story times, which is, you see these children with parents, with volunteers, and they're associating books with everything that is warm, that they love, and it's something tactile, they're touching it, they're looking at adults enjoying it. And I don't know what's gonna replace that. I don't know where they're gonna go. I hear there are some plans, but on the other end of the spectrum, where I sit, I'm 71 years old. For almost 15 years, I've been part of a all-male book club that I just adore. And as we get older, we comment all the time about how not just a book club, but that physical ability to be able to read a lot of books is just huge in our life. Again, I'm privileged, I'm fortunate. I can get to libraries, I can go to bookstores. There are a lot of seniors who won't have that ability if they live in this area and don't have an easy way to go to the other library. And then finally, my grandkids are part of that generation. I imagine some of you are parents of kids in there that just got whacked by COVID. And the amount of work that my daughter and son-in-law had to do to be sure that they could make those weekly trips was amazing. And yet, still, libraries were closed, schools were closed, libraries were closed. And that generation's already been hit. And there's gonna be a group of kids, which I'll mention at the very end here, that are right around our granddaughter's age, who I really kind of fear for. Before I mention that, what are you gonna do about it? I think Mr. Dunkelberg might be suggesting some ideas. I look at a room like this, and naively, although I've talked to some staff, I think this is all you need, right? You know, a couple rows of books here, ask people to be online. Essentially what I'm saying is, instead of hundreds of us trying to get back and forth there every week, find a way to have a vehicle come, 3 times a week, bring books and take them back. Something like that, doesn't have to be 7 days a week, that'd be great, but at least some opportunity to pick up and drop off, still in bed. You know, with the machines that we use, it requires some people to go online and all. However, I know there are issues, there's money. I implore you to consider that that's money well spent. I have to give my wife credit for the idea that if you're looking for a space because this is not gonna be available because of construction or parking or something, the ice pavilion over here. I don't know, I know Ben Parks and Rec runs a lot of it. That's a massive parking lot, never ever used, even during the summer when they do all of their rafting. The vast majority of that parking lot's open. Well, what do you do there? Hey, you got a contractor here, or you got the Haydens and the Palishes and all there. They've got these completely fitted out with heating, air conditioning, and toilet trailers that are actually pretty nice. If you've ever been inside one of those, go to them. Hey, we need a contribution here, you know, or especially even the people that are doing this work. And plug in over there. I mean, that's where I vote. You know, they have the boxes there. It's a place people could go, or at least be creative and find some way that people here on this side can do it. I'll finish with this. I hope I haven't gone over 3. I sure have. So every year, this time of year, I call our grandkids' school library. Because how do I know these days? She is, my granddaughter in particular, is just amazing. I can't keep up with her, where she's going. And they always know, they usually know our kids. And they also know what's hot for us to be able to have as a gift there. And I had the most extraordinary conversation because now she's in 6th grade. And so I made my usual comment about how she's such an avid reader. And you could just hear on the other end of the line, this librarian going, I said, well, what is it? She goes, this is the age. This is the age where they go in, and they used to go into the room and close the door because they would read. But now they are faced with all of these devices. They're faced with their cell phones and their whatever, you know, we all know. And she goes, they go in the room now and they do that work. And she said, I only hope you're successful in making sure that they just feel this connection to physical books. So I tell you that now because I think it's real and I think I'm afraid of it. And I think my daughter and her husband are perfectly capable of doing the best. But even if kids could use, let's say, online books, which I don't particularly like because I don't like looking at more devices, even if they could, it's probably not great for them. And there's nothing like having that physical thing in your hand. So trying not to make this about me or my wife, I'd like to make this about those other people who may not be here at this meeting, the seniors, the young kids, the parents of those kids, and hope that there is this some way find within your budget. I'm sorry, I know I won't be here for the 2 hours of the whole thing, but this was what the time is allotted. Thank you so much for that 3 minutes, sorry, 3 hours.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jack and Leslie, for coming and for giving us your views. You do take public input really seriously and you've raised an important issue, so thank you very much. Yeah, and our meetings are recorded and they are posted online on the library website, so if you want to, if you want to see the end of the discussion, yeah, you can go on our website and.
Just a little addendum to what he said, it's not the ice pavilion lot that we were talking about, but it's the one that supposedly was supposed to be the OSU Cascades parking lot.
Yes.
That just sits there empty, it's a gigantic, huge parking lot, so Tumalo Canoe and Rentals used this a little bit during the summer, but even at the height of rafting season and whatever, there's a huge empty parking lot, so it's the ability to have people be able to have a place to park and possibly a place to put just a temporary pick up and drop off. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your input.
And you may want to check and see if we have anybody online.
Do we have anyone online that would like to comment?
Okay,
Okay. It's hard to always see.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, our first order of business is our monitoring report on financial conditions and activities, and it's time for our annual external audit. So, welcome.
Yeah, if you can just come up here, it might be easier for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is Brenda Bartlett. And, my apologies, Brenda, I'm trying to think of how many years you've been doing our audit. It's probably close to 10 years. So this is part of our annual review of our finances, and Brenda and her team. This is an extensive process. They actually start in August and start taking probably earlier than that. Actually, I think I met with you in May, so.
Probably, yeah, it's
Yes.
usually May,
Yeah,
be here before you know, right?
so I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Alright. Thank you for having me again. I'm sorry, I am getting over a cold, so I'm a little raspy, and if I start coughing. Okay, so I usually like to start with our audit report. I don't know what you all have in front of you. It is usually page 1 of your report.
So we have the audit report in your letter.
Great, so we're gonna be looking at the big package financial statements. Okay, so it's page 1. And so I don't spend too much time here, but the big news is the very first paragraph is our opinion. And what we do is we give an opinion on the fairness of the financial statements that management has prepared. And what we call this is an unmodified opinion, which is what we want. And so that is what you have. So that's great. We kind of talk a little bit about the basis for our opinions. What we do is we go find evidence to back those numbers up in a variety of ways. And so we get some kind of substantiation there so that you can trust our opinion on those financial statements. And we do have a little emphasis of a matter paragraph this year. This is a little bit different than every other year. And this is just something that is required when a new pronouncement, a new accounting standard is adopted. This particular accounting standard was called GASB 101. It was in relation to compensated absences or employee leave. And so this year we ended up implementing a standard that really called in more of the more of the leave, and then also in addition to that, accrue the salary related payments. So as you pay that out in the next year, you're also going to have to pay things like FICA tax and whatnot. So changed a little bit. And one of the things that, the reason the paragraph's in there is because part of that is we have to go back to the prior year as if the standard was in effect then, and restate the beginning net position. So we always call that out a little bit. Not a big deal. Everybody did it this year, so everybody's in the same boat on that. That's really all I need to talk about in the report. We do have two reports, and one is at the very, very end of the document. So.
72.
Thank you, Calvin. So in addition to a financial statement audit, the state of Oregon requires municipal auditors to do some compliance testing and auditing and reporting. And so right there in the middle of that page is a bulleted list of the things that we look at that are really not financial. You know, it's not like what is cash, it is what are they doing, you know, how are they complying with the laws, other regulations. And so the big ones that we really look at are programs funded from outside sources for when you have grants, and making sure that you are sitting, you know, you're spending the money as required. We look at public contracts and purchasing, which is huge for the district right now. And you guys do a great job of that. I don't think ever had a finding there. Everybody knows what they're doing here. I see a lot of that in the board minutes as well. And so those are really, we look at budgets as well. So that whole process of adopting budgets and then spending it in accordance with your appropriation. So we did identify one instance of non-compliance with the budget law this year, pretty minor, but it was approved. The board approved it. I saw it in the minutes. There was a transfer between the grant fund and the general fund. The problem is that there is a rule that there's an actual formal resolution to do that. And so we have to call it out, but I also want to put it in context. So it was clearly approved by everybody, so. So then we say, other than that, we didn't find anything. We looked at, you know, all of those things, and we found everything to be quite in order. And then the last thing that we talk about, they ask us is, as we plan an audit, we have to understand the internal controls of the library. And so if we find things where we think maybe there's a hole, or we want to suggest some strengthening of controls, this is where we'll put it. We'll also put it in a separate letter. But nothing like that. The controls are looking good. You have a lot of help from an outside consultant CPA firm that really strengthens that third-party review in addition to the audit. So everything's in good order. So any questions on our reports? All right. Then I'm going to go on to the letter. And I kind of skirt through this letter because we talk a little bit about some of this when I talk about the report. And so I'm going to kind of page through it. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, we kind of at the top of page 2, we do send you all an email with a letter about our planning, when we plan to finish, what we plan to do, the things that we're looking at. We do look at the risk of the audit. So one of the things that is important for us to look at is, where do we want to spend our time? And in most governments, we'll spend a lot of time in payroll because that's a lot of your resources are spent on humans. We spend for the district a lot of time on the bond project. So we'll spend a lot of time in there as well. So those are the kinds of things that we do in the middle of our planning. We do want to assure you there in the middle of the second page that we have complied with all of our requirements regarding independence. So that means that we are independent from management, from the board, and that way you can rely on our opinion, that it's not influenced by any relationship that we might have with people in the district. So they're at the bottom of that page and going into the top of the third page. These are significant risks identified. So this is something that's new, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We've always done this as auditors. We've always said just what I just told you. Where are we going to spend our time? Where's the risk? And a couple of years ago, our standard setter said, you can't share this with the board. So it was a little bit alarming at the time. They're like, what do you mean we have significant risk? So you've always had risk. This is just telling you where we spend our time. So those places, which we also shared in our first letter to you, is the capital assets related to the bond project. That's a lot of heavy lifting of accounting there. And so we look at that quite closely. Fair value accounting for investments. Also an area that's a lot of heavy lift, just ask Robert. So the requirements of our standard setter are that if you have unrealized gains or losses, they want you to put that in the financial statements. It used to be that we bought it and that's how we reported it until we sold it. And now we have to record those fluctuations. So they're a little bit harder to account for, even a little bit harder to audit. So we always say that's one of the significant risks. Once you've spent the bond funds, that won't be the case anymore. And then this third one is management override of controls. That is something that we're required to talk with you about. It just means that management has a lot of authority and power. And so there's always a risk that we need to look at, that they're overriding the controls that are inside the library. And if we saw any of that, we would of course report it to you. So the next thing we talk a little bit about is like your accounting policies. All of those accounting policies are in note 1 in your report. It's footnote 1 to the statements. Calling out this year that we had a couple new standards to implement. I already talked about the compensated absences. There was another one called GASB 102 that really started asking management to start tracking risks that the district faces. There's no disclosure required unless something triggers those risks. So a good example of that is if we're in a small area where one of our business owners they're responsible for half of our property taxes, right? If that happens, and that person goes out of business or relocates, that's a risk that you face. And under the standard would be disclosed if it happened, if you heard in the news that they were thinking about leaving. And so it's just something that has always been on management's awareness, but not anything they've ever asked us to disclose. So just letting the public know if there's these risks that are imminent. So they're tracking it, nothing disclosable this year, but that's just something that the standard's requiring now, is just a little bit more work of saying, what are the risks, what's happening, what might be new, what's not a risk anymore. So just tracking those year over year. Accounting estimates. These are what I talked a little bit about, unrealized gains and losses on investments, that the library's share of the net pension, unfunded liability. Everybody knows about that, the system wide. It's recording that piece. That's an estimate, changes every year, goes up, goes down, mostly up. The other thing this year is, of course, the compensated absences are a bit of an estimate as well, because we don't always know what's going to happen. But it's not as big of an estimate as the PERS or the investments. Disclosures, we call that out. It's really the same as estimates. Anytime you have an estimate in a financial statement, it's a little bit different than just saying I have cash, because I can see that in the bank, and the rest of this is empty. And so those disclosures are a little bit more sensitive. They can be a little volatile, so we like to call that out as well. No significant or unusual transactions. We didn't identify or suspect any fraud. We had no difficulties with the new audit. And let's see, we talked a little bit about uncorrected and corrected misstatements. There are things that come to our attention. We have a little threshold. And if something that we see is an error and it hits our threshold, it still might not be material overall. And it might be really hard to fix, because by the time everybody comes to audit, we've got financial statements and everybody's done a whole bunch of work. And so this first one was, we detected an amount of it was a bend permit, and it was just in the wrong accounting period. And management did choose to pass on that. And that's perfectly reasonable. I just want to make sure everybody understands that it hits our scope, and we say, do you want to make the adjustment? Now, a bigger one will say, oh, sorry, can't pass on that one. But yeah, so we always talk about uncorrected misstatements in the financial statements that aren't material. And then, of course, we did have one adjustment that we brought to management's attention, and they corrected it. And that was just having to do with the health insurance premiums of prepaid. Again, just a timing issue, so it's in the right place, right year, I guess I should say. Moving on to the next page, we had no disagreements with management, no modifications to our opinion, as I'd shared already. We do ask both Todd and Robert to sign a letter giving us just that representation that they've shared everything with us that's pertinent to the audit. They did do that. And then we talk a little bit about internal control. Like I said, there were no internal control weaknesses that we identified. We always like to call it, there could be things we didn't find, but everything looked really solid from our perspective. And that's really it for this letter of the things that are important. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I feel like I say the same thing every year, but that's good. I
You've got
mean, no,
people
it's
listening,
good,
so.
right?
Yeah,
Yep. Okay, well, thanks for having me.
well, it's always good to see you,
Yeah,
Brenda.
it's always very beneficial.
Also, thank you, Brenda, a big thanks to Robert and
Yes.
Brett, and by the way, Brett is here, you probably get emails from Brett all the time. Now you can put a face on it.
Before we close this portion of the agenda, if there were any questions that the board had, or if you would like me to walk through the annual financial statement, that part is our responsibility, and outside of the scope of our auditor to make any positive or negative statements about the financial report itself. That's permitted.
People have any questions?
Probably the biggest question I'd have was, did you have seen significant changes from when we did the fourth quarter?
I did not note any significant changes. I know there definitely were some changes to what I reported, I guess 2 months ago now to the board for the fourth quarter wrap up. But those changes really were mainly with ending fund balances, getting some of those corrections. A lot of the work, as Brenda alluded to, for fair market value adjustment plays into that. And then also these restatements related to the compensated absences, because this new pronouncement was applicable both to this year under audit and the year previous. Our CPA needed to go back and develop a restated ending fund balance for fiscal year 2024, which basically restated our starting fund balance for fiscal year 2025, which made some of those numbers a little bit different. Again, it wasn't a very large change, but it was enough where those balances were different than what I presented to you. The other thing, just as a general statement, and I know Brenda has said this in the past, but the one area that really any board member should spend some time going through is this first section, the management discussion and analysis. It's something of an executive summary of all of the data underneath. It gives you a lot of the top line numbers, but it puts it into context about how does that compare to last year and what influenced that and what were the major factors involved with that. So I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't already, to look at the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis portions, just the first 5 or 6 pages. And then, of course, if you have any questions about the numbers in the rest of the document, I'm always available to answer the questions for the board.
Right. We don't have any action that is required on that. But we do have our monitoring report on
Yes.
financial conditions and activities.
So this is all of the monitoring reports. This is the only one where I take each line and then give my answer to each line. Most of them are pretty straightforward, like we will not be in debt beyond what can be repaid in the fiscal year, obviously. The bond funds are a big piece of that, and you're aware of that. A couple of them I want to highlight, so I'm not going to run through each of them, but definitely ask if you have questions on any of them. Reduce the current liquid assets at any time, this is number 5, to less than the amount required to meet the liabilities for the next 45 days. We have a significant, we have about an $18 million carry forward, so we're not even close to that this point. But I also highlight, we talk about at budget time, that the board has a policy that we always carry forward at least 17% of our expenditures. I have that in reserve in the general fund. And so we're just to highlight that we're well above that. I did want to highlight, it talks about number 7, contract for services of legal counsel without approval of the board. So some of these happened a long time ago. But we work with local government law group, and we have for close to 26 years. And that's for almost everything we do. We have been working with Hawkins, Delafield and Wood, who is our bond counsel. They help with all issues specifically around the bond. And when we purchased the land out at Stevens Ranch, we worked with Britt Law to help with land use issues. And all of those were approved by the board, but I just want to highlight that, especially at some point, if you're doing the monitoring of our spending, and that's your job that week, and you see that we're all of a sudden paying a bunch of money to an attorney you've never heard of, especially another firm, that's a good time to raise a flag and say, I don't think the board approved that. So, and also just a reminder, the last one was number 12, that we have a resolution at the first meeting of the district's year to change authorizations for signing and check warrants, and that is actually the first. I know for Michelle and Laura, that's the first thing you did, so I just might have run out there, but so we do that every year, and we'll do it again this July, just to be in compliance with that. So my assessment of all this is that we are in compliance with the district's financial conditions and activities executive obligations policy.
Any questions for Paul?
No.
Mhm. All right, I would entertain a motion.
All right, I move that the library district is in compliance with the financial conditions and activities executive limitations policy.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion passes unanimously. Okay. The next section up is director recruitment, and this is going to be a standing section that we will have on every board meeting so that we stay up to date with what is going on. And Betsy?
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and say, this is a very exciting part of our job, the recruitment piece, and I would very much like to be a part of it. But I will be considering whether or not to submit an application for this position. It's early in the process, so I have no idea. But it's something that I will consider. And so I just want to give the process a little extra space. And so I'll be excusing myself from this conversation and future conversations. So just let me know when I can come back.
Okay, great. Send somebody out.
Yeah. Can you find a? Since I stole Todd's chair, she can't use it. Yeah.
So Jennifer Palmer, our HR manager, is helping us with this, with our subcommittee. And our subcommittee met on Monday. So just wanted to give you an update of where we were. And as a reminder, the subcommittee is Chantal Strobel, Jennifer, me, Michelle, and me. Everybody get one needs to? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Todd. So just a couple of updates for the board. As Todd mentioned, the steering committee met this Monday, and out of that discussion, we did some refinements for the timeline. You all have hard copies of that. We made a few tweaks that I'll discuss in just a moment. And We've also, had some, collective input on the request for quote draft, which I took back, refined, and, sent back to the steering committee who's, approved the narrative, in the request for quote. So everybody has a copy of the revised timeline, the request for quote document, and then the, enclosure, which is the director's job description. Going back to the search timeline, the tweak that we made was, we started talking about the fact that the activities in the January/February timeline were a little compressed, and decided to give the process a little grace and space it out a little bit. So currently, what we have adjusted is kind of in that phase 2, phase 3 area, where we anticipate the week of January 5th, sending out the RFQ to search firm finalists. And then the deadline that we kind of moved up just a little bit to give us more work time. We moved the RFQ responses due back to the board steering committee by 5 o'clock Pacific time, Friday, January 23rd. And then we are going to have a very ambitious time period where we turn around the selection and notice of intent to award for the firm. So our next meeting is planned for this coming Tuesday at 11. And I don't necessarily have an agenda yet, but we will kind of move forward with all of our pre-work, including refining our search firm selection, at least who to send information to. So.
Right, and I really want to thank Jennifer for all the hard work she did in pulling all this information together, because it really is, gave us a great starting point. And I wanted to make sure that you all had information as we were going along. And so if you have questions or reactions to what we've given out today, you know, please let me know. Just give me a call, and you know, because we want everybody to be a part of this process. There should be no surprises as we move along, and we all want to be on the same page on this, obviously, because this is an important choice. The job description, as I understand it, was originally last updated in 2021.
2020. It's on.
2020. Oh, okay, great. And so, but Todd has reviewed it and has said it accurately reflects what he does. And so, but there will be some decisions that we make, and we will do those in concert with Jennifer and with the search firm as far as what the wording, what ramifications that wording will have as far as the impact on the pool of candidates that we get. So we'll be working on this throughout. But I wanted you to make sure that you kind of were up to date as we went along.
And I'd say before our Tuesday meeting, if you have any comments on the draft of the request for quotes.
Yeah,
that would be a good time to just send any thoughts.
Yeah, if you have that's our first big thing that we have to finalize. And so if you have a chance to look at that this week or this weekend, that would be great. Any questions or comments?
And I would just echo what Anne said. I think your feedback and input is really much appreciated. And so if you want also to take some time and look at the position description, it's good to have this as a starting place and to have Todd's input as he's the one doing the position. But there's also, you know, there's requirements for the position too that are in there that I think we'll all want to make sure we're in agreement on too. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there'll be some decisions ahead,
Yeah.
but we'll all move through this together and come up with the best possible product that we can. Okay. Any other further thoughts, Todd or
No,
Jennifer?
no.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is super
Thank you,
helpful.
Jennifer.
Thanks for getting all this
Thank you.
revised and put together and, yeah.
Maybe let's see that.
Yeah, I think,
Oh,
did
thank you.
somebody,
Robert.
Robert went to the, yeah.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah. Didn't even get time to get that email sent, right?
I know, I could have a little more time to get some work done.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so next up is our education piece on Community Librarians by Sara.
Yes.
So, and Todd, do you wanna?
Yes, welcome to Sara, and this is kind of part two. We had education last month on our kind of programs we do and events. This is also a big piece of that as well. And I've given you our org chart for managers, so if you're taking notes, Sarah's reports to Chantal, and she is currently the library service manager, but I know we're looking at different titles. So.
Yeah, so everything changes
Yes.
again. Right.
It's very home treat. I will be joining Zoom so I can screen share with you all.
Okay.
All right, so we're here to talk about who are the community librarians, what do they do, why do they do it, and how do we do it? So, on your handout, you have, it's kind of a cheat sheet to a little bit of what we're gonna be looking at. And on the back of that handout, you have a list of various programs that CLs use over the next couple months. And I'll be specifically referring to a few of these and encouraging you to put them on your calendar so you can go check those out. Okay, we're gonna start with the who, because that is the heart, of course, of a team, or is the people. Then we'll be looking at how that team gets done what they get done through the structure that we have in the community librarians. We'll look at how we embed our why into what we do through our goals and services. And then we'll end with where are we going next? And we can't really talk about the future without talking about difficult decisions. And as you all are intimately familiar with, there are always going to be difficult decisions. Wrapping around all of that is consistency. That is what makes anything we do successful. And that's going to come up again and again in this talk. Okay, so starting with the members. So there are too many of us to talk about each one individually. Just know that there are 15 members in the CL team. And I'm going to ask you to do a little thought experiment. If you had to guess how many years of experience this team had total at DPL, just come up with a number in your head. If you were close to 200 years of experience, then you were right. The other number I'll share, because there's too many numbers and I want to focus on stories tonight, are the hours of direct one-on-one interactions this team had with customers over last year. So those interactions include things like research, reference, reader's advisory. It means helping people figure out how to use a computer so they can apply for a job. It means helping people get into their health records. So those are all the kinds of very hands-on conversations that we have with people. And we spent 600 hours doing that last year. So we're going to get a sense of who the team is. So then we're going to go into how are we structured. So our team structure involves two key pieces. We have specialties and we have target populations. So each CL, the community librarians are called CL for short. So each librarian has one specialty and are involved in one target population team. The specialties are those areas of like deep expertise that each librarian can dive into and really become intimately familiar with. This is how they make decisions on what organizations they partner with locally. This is how they make decisions on the programs and services they provide to the public. Our target populations are little work teams within the overall librarian team. We identified target populations that have historically faced barriers to access, both in libraries in general, but also in Deschutes County specifically. And so we use these also to make decisions about organizations we're reaching out to, festivals we're partnering in, and also how can we create our programs and services to remove more of those barriers. Okay. As a little foreshadowing, you'll see a couple of these turned red. Some foreshadowing to when I talk about challenges at the end. So this goes to those push-pull pieces of tough decisions that we all have to make. So just throwing that little hint out to you. All right, we've talked about who, we've talked about how, and now we're going to go into the real meat of what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight, which is the what and why. So back in 2023, the team was ready to create a new set of goals, and we really wanted to align those DPL core values with the critical needs that we saw in the community. And so in order to identify these needs, we looked at what is the research, what are the reports telling us are really high impact factors right now. So the first one that came up for us at that time were social emotional skills. As you all know, coming out of COVID, 2023, students were getting back into school and there were gaps, big gaps in those interpersonal skills. So we looked at the state of Oregon and we looked at the Department of Education to see what they were using. And that's where this image comes from, which is on your handout as well. So those social emotional learning competencies woven together with vocal constructs. And so we took that training and we really tried to think about how do we incorporate this into the programs we offer. So one great example is a program called Burst. So you'll see on the back of your handout, there's another one offered in Redmond next week. If you have not been to a program from our librarian, Betsy, you are in for a treat. So much energy, like come with coffee. So Burst is all about sensory development, and it addresses the self-awareness, self-management, and relationship skills that we see in those social emotional learning competencies. Another one that our librarian Erin just recently did was a whole series on journaling for kids. And we had so many people turn out for it, we ran out of notebooks. And she designed it really well using very specific prompts to get the kids doing a lot of reflection. And again, coming back into those social emotional learning skills. Now, the one that I think you might be surprised about, but has been so successful in incorporating all 10 of these is Dungeons and Dragons. Wow. You might be thinking like, isn't that a board game? Or if you've been watching Stranger Things, you're like, isn't that the thing with upside down? There. So it is so much more than that. So you saw, I also handed out a character worksheet for Dungeons and Dragons. So this is just one little example of some of the many activities they can do in these series. We have 2 librarians, actually up to 3 now because so many people keep coming out. And we're doing this every week for teens, and we just started an adult program for it as well. So the thing with Dungeons and Dragons that ties them with social emotional learning is, as you see on this worksheet, you have to really think about what is this character's background? What is this character's equipment? What do they use for languages? What kind of alliances have they made over their life? And so it really gets the kids asking all kinds of questions. I would love to see the board do a D&D night. I can totally see like a wizard, like I could see like a elf, you know, it would be amazing. And then what the kids have to do is with D&D, the way we've designed it is they're not playing the game as adversaries. They're playing as a team together, having to get through the quest collectively. And so that is where those social emotional skills for collaborative problem solving, relationship building, all of that is coming into play. A great story one of my librarians told me about the teen D&D group in La Pine. We had one student who had been having lots of issues at school, kept having these big emotional outbursts, and came to D&D and finally started making friends, like for the first time in years. And after several weeks of doing the same quest, the librarian was watching, and you know, they've been coaching these kids every week through all the hard stuff, all the tough decisions. And there was one week finally where the kids all noticed and they were like, "Are you okay? You seem really frustrated." And the student who'd been having so many issues was able to stop and go, "You're right, I'm really frustrated right now. Can we just take a break?" And he didn't lash out, he didn't yell at anybody, he just recognized what he needed and asked for it. And that was huge. That was so different from week one. So that comes back to that consistency piece that she was gonna wrap around everything. That didn't happen the first week. That happened in the third month of consistently coming every week. So that's one example. And that ties in also with our second goal, which is loneliness. And as you all have probably heard, that was declared to be an epidemic after the pandemic. And what we're seeing in the research is the highest impact on age groups right now is on young people, so teens and tweens, and folks over 65. Those are the groups that are really experiencing loneliness the most. So a few examples of how this has come to play in our programs. About a year and a half ago, our librarian Ria came to the board with a collaboration with OHSU. And OHSU wanted to do a study looking at what kind of difference would it make if people did physical activity alone versus physical activity as a group. And part of that was to do walking groups with public libraries. And we were selected. That wrapped up in February, but here we are in December and those walking clubs are still going. In fact, I went down to Lapine last week and joined the one that goes in Lapine. There were 10 of us. We did a 2-mile loop in the neighborhoods and there was conversation flowing the whole time. There were people who've been part of the study the whole time. There were new faces who were joining just for the first week. So it's really lovely to see how that has come across. And if you follow our Instagram, there was a great video, shout out to the communications team who did a lovely job just illustrating what those walking groups look like. Another one that we just started recently in the last 3 months is a teen council, and that's meeting at the Redmond Library. Sheila and Megan, our 2 librarians, started that. I want to give a shout out to Megan. She has been consistently showing up with student clubs and she's been consistently going out to the schools. And that's how she was able to finally get about a dozen teens, which as you might know, teens are hard. Oh my gosh. We were hoping we would at least get 5, but to have a dozen show up was really amazing. And they asked them like right away, what are the struggles? What are the things that teens in Central Oregon are having the hardest time with? And they did a brainstorm together. And the thing that came up most was we need more socializing. We don't know how to socialize. And the part of that kept coming like 3 different parts just in this board is mental health. We need help getting mental health resources. And so we're looking forward to the teen council helping us create more of those teen programs that will address those issues. The last one I want to mention, so again, our librarian Ria, she's our health and wellness specialist. And like I said, those specialties help the librarians really focus in on who are they reaching out to in the community. So with the outreach and networking she's done in health and wellness, she's heard over and over again how isolating it is to be a patient with dementia, to be a parent of someone with dementia. And so she started a group called Cognitive Connections, which is specifically aimed at folks with dementia and their caregivers. So the caregivers come and have other people to talk to who know what they're experiencing. And just this week, we got an amazing email. So Patty's been working with Ria and bringing people into this program. And she wrote that a few couples who met at the first event are developing a friendship that extends beyond the gatherings. His wife said he is more comfortable talking about having dementia now, and she's so happy to see such a positive difference in inclusion for these people. So it's making a difference. With loneliness, we go into our next goal, and this is one that we really struggle to wrap our minds around. I mean, it's such a clear community need. We know there's economic insecurity, we know there's housing instability, and there's such a big income gap in this area. But what does the library do about it? How do we address that from our mission and from where we're at? The good news is we found that there was a lot of things that we're already doing that really tie in with this. So you're probably aware we have Thrive. We partner with Thrive to bring in social workers into the library every week, and they're helping people with housing and jobs and food. We also have a long-standing partnership with SCORE, and they provide business mentorship. And so that is both workshops and it's one-on-one sessions with people who want to start a business of their own. We also do the Lapine Festival once a year. If you haven't heard about that, it's fairly new. We've only done it 3 times now, but it's been so successful. It's 30 different organizations who offer free resources, do a big event with us, and we've had about 500 people attend each time. One of the years we had each of the partners brought in different ingredients, and it became a meal kit for the people who came. So that's been wonderful. Another thing that happens more frequently are the swaps we do. So you might have heard about those puzzle swaps, craft supplies, plants and seeds. And this, it sounds so simple, but it actually fulfills 3 of our goals. So we've seen it address loneliness, it's addressing financial empowerment, and it's addressing our 4th goal, which will be underserved populations. We're seeing low-income families come in and get those kinds of enrichment tools that they might otherwise not be able to afford. At our last craft supply swap, a group of women decided to make it part of their day of sustainability. So they biked to the swap. They met other women there for the first time and all went and got coffee together to talk about how they're going to mend their clothes to keep them lasting longer. And so connections are being formed with people both new and the people who keep coming back to the swaps again and again. A couple exciting things that I'm really looking forward to with this goal. Our librarian, Megan, has been active with the Oregon Library Association. And through that, she's made connections that have led to getting involved with Aspire with the state of Oregon. And Aspire is a college and career readiness resource that provides all the curriculum and the training so that then the libraries can provide workshops and mentoring for families and teens who are looking for what is my next step after high school. So Meg will start the training for that in January, and then we're hoping to start our workshops and mentoring in late 2026. And then the last one for financial empowerment that has been really amazing. Jenny, our legal services specialist, she has also her own connections and outreach that she's been doing in the community with various law partners. And one of those is an organization called Changing Patterns. And so through that, they've created a weekly program at the library, meets every Monday night, called Reentry Weeklies for folks who are coming out of prison. And these folks sometimes come out with a sleeping bag if they're lucky. And so Changing Patterns and Reentry Weeklies, it helps folks find the resources they need to get reintegrated back into society. And this is, again, an example where consistency has played the key. When it first started, those first few weeks, there were some people coming, but it wasn't a lot. And then as word of mouth kept going, by the 3rd month, we had so many people come in, we've had to bump up into bigger meeting rooms just to accommodate everybody. And it's still going strong every Monday. In fact, one of the guys that started coming early on, he's opened his own halfway house to help other people coming out of prison. So that's been wonderful to see. And then lastly, there's our goal for underserved populations. And this is one where we really have to do a lot of partnering. Just like the financial empowerment one, with underserved populations, this is where I give a shout out to our tech services team, who you heard from Emily last time. So as tech services is weeding out duplicate books from the collection, when they find books that are in good condition, they give them to us for the shareberry books. And this means we cover up the DPL branding with these wonderful stickers. And then our team takes these books out to houseless outreach visits. Our librarian Josie every month is taking a whole bunch of these out to the mobile food pantry. We go out to low-income neighborhoods and housing projects and bring shareberry books. So that's a wonderful collaboration that's been really successful. We also have Rainbow Family Night for our LGBTQ families. That's happening every month, and it's full of activities. And in fact, an outcome of that where the kids for one of those groups created a whole art show for a local coffee shop. And that was at Rainbow Family Night. And then we have some more challenging services to offer. So earlier this year, as the whole situation with immigration and ICE was getting really uncertain and scary, our 2 librarians, Jenny and Diana, paired up together. So our legal services specialist and our Spanish speaking librarian. And they created a series of online workshops called Know Your Rights. And this was a way to help people stay prepared and stay safe. We had to offer those online because people were not feeling comfortable leaving their house. A couple that are really exciting that we've been doing weekly now in Redmond. And this is where it's underserved and it's addressing loneliness. So Whoopsie Daisy, if you've ever heard of that, it's a preschool that is co-located with a memory care facility. And so Haley, our librarian who does this, has designed activities that will bring in both the seniors and the kids. And as we've learned from Cognitive Connections with Ria, music is really important for engaging folks with dementia and helping kids learn early learning. And so she brings in songs and stories, and the seniors and the kids get to do them. And that, again, consistency, doing that every week is creating connections and relationships that folks might not otherwise have. Similarly, there's Bridge Meadows. So this is a housing development in Central Oregon that pairs seniors with foster kids. And so again, Haley's going out there every week, bringing activities, helping these folks create conversations and connections. Yeah. All of this, of course, is possible if we do it consistently. Those relationships that we're trying to build, relationships don't happen in a one-off. As much as our romance books love to tell us that there is like friends at first sight. It takes time. It all takes time. And the time is part of the challenges that we are facing. So thinking about that, it's not just our team, it is DPL as a whole. I mean, you all grappled with this just last week when you were thinking about the board result policies. We know that that DPL as a whole has served the community in so many ways over the years. But even just in the last 100 years, we've served Ben in 3 different buildings. So the top is this building that we're sitting in right now from the 1950s. And then we have downtown Ben for 30 years. And now we're about to present this new building. The buildings are going to keep changing. What has been consistent has been the services we've offered in those buildings. And what helps those services come to life are the staff. But the staff also need consistent expectations, and they need a consistent place to be. So this is all giving us some pause about the push and pull within our own team. So some of the questions coming up for us are really around these 3 areas. So like Chantal and Todd said, my team will be absorbing the makerspace folks, which we're super excited about. We're going to be posting positions for that soon, and that's wonderful. We love that we're providing 3D printers and laser cutters for people. But do we do that at risk of leapfrogging over the customer who still needs to learn how to use email so they can apply for jobs? We serve both. We serve the full spectrum of abilities and needs in Deschutes County. Early learning is another one. We have a crossroad to choose a path on. So we've already made some sacrifices where we don't go to as many preschools, and the librarians don't go to Head Start at all anymore. We have a volunteer to do that instead, because the programming demand is so high. And as we open Central and then open downtown Bend, that programming demand will just get higher. And so as we fulfill that, what are we letting go of in order to make that happen? Bilingual services is a tough one. For example, these makerspace staff that I'm going to be hiring, I really need them to have technology skills. Gosh, how would it be if they had some Spanish skills too? But there probably will be a point where I can't choose both. So we're going to have so many decisions as we keep going forward. And there are not answers or solutions to any of these right now. These are just things that I think we all have to keep in mind. So that is the community librarian team. Oh, I wanted to share this quote. It's so harsh. But boy, did it hit for me. So Greg McCowan from his book Essentialism says the word priority came into English in the 1400s and it was singular. And it stayed singular for 500 years. Only in the 1900s did we pluralize it to talk about priorities, because we thought that by changing the word, we could bend reality. But only one thing can ever come first at a time. So what are we going to choose first? Yeah. Any questions?
Wow. Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Yeah, this is really long overdue, I think. I learned a lot. My question that came up for me is, I look at the amazing work that everybody on your team is doing, and people are creating these programs that are just really successful and are working, and we have demonstrated success. But it sounds like we have demonstrated success at one branch. And maybe not in all cases. I mean, in some cases it's spread throughout, but so how do we look at replicating programs? Like when we come across something in Redmond that really works, I mean, obviously we have to evaluate whether it's appropriate for all branches, but how do we replicate that success? Like for instance, the teen councils. Is that a discussion?
Oh, it is,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, we were just talking about that this week because the teen council right now meets in Redmond at 2:00 on a Wednesday because that's early release.
Right,
But Sisters doesn't have early release on Wednesdays.
right,
So they can't join that because they're still in school. We want to start one in Bend. We're waiting for the Central Library to open so that there's, again, that consistent place for them
Right.
to meet. In Lapine, we found that if we're gonna see if we keep D&D going, can we pull from those kids who are coming to D&D to be part of the teen council?
right.
It's really interesting how different each community is in
Mhm.
terms of what they are willing to commit to and what they maybe just do for fun.
Right.
Yeah, so another great example of how we're continuing to spread things out across branches is like Rainbow Family Night.
Mhm.
It's in both Bend and Redmond consistently. We're trying it out in Lapine. And we're just finding that with the smaller population there, it seems to work better as a quarterly program instead of a monthly program.
Right.
And that also is just more sustainable for the team too.
Right.
So that'll be the other piece that we have to look at is how far can we spread the team?
Right. Yeah, it's just. You want to pick all of the things at all of the places, and there aren't enough people to do that. So I mean, prioritizing that. Has got to be really challenging.
Oh, yeah, hard.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed this presentation. Wow, thank you. Any other questions?
I'm curious, when you hire your CLs, do you hire them with experience in the specialty that they'll be?
That's a great question. For the youth librarians, definitely. So early learning and school age, I mean, that early childhood development really requires a certain kind of skill. For the adult focused specialties, so business, nonprofit, and wellness. Those we have, that's where a lot of that 200 years of experience comes in, is in that group. We haven't had to hire from that so far. With the bilingual librarians we were really lucky and got youth experience with both of us. So the next time we have to hire an adult librarian, some of it is just seeing what are they bringing to the table. It can be so difficult to find people with a master's of library science.
Yeah.
And that's part of what this position requires.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a couple questions, but I want to echo what Ann said. That was a great presentation, and I feel like I'm continually amazed at all the different ways that our libraries serve people and how passionate you all are about figuring out how can we reach people, what do they need, how can we fill that need. And this was just a perfect example of it. So thank you. And thank you for the work that you do every day. You highlighted in red those two, and I just want to make sure what was the wraparound with that? Are those?
And I missed which ones they were. There was early learning and I didn't see the other.
It was tech and jobs.
Okay, yeah.
So those are the two that we will probably be needing to ask for staff in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So early learning, we have 3 people on that specialty right now. And like I said, the demand is growing. We've already kind of shed some activities and responsibilities in that group just so that we can keep up with the story time demand. And we're also getting a lot more requests for parents and caregivers to get training in early learning. So that's more programming.
Yeah.
The other one, tech and job skills, we don't have anyone in that one right now. But that is, as we see the area facing more layoffs, we see more people coming in asking for a resume and job searching help. And our other librarians can do that. But they've been focusing their skill sets on other specialties. The technology piece of it is the really hard one. Technology is kind of like hiring for the maker or hiring for any of these other specialties. For someone to be able to help folks with those technology troubleshooting questions, and they really need to know what they're doing if they don't want to spend 3 hours doing it. 3 hours each question. Because we get some doozies in. We get people, and the saddest ones are things like people who just lost a spouse and the spouse was the one who paid all the bills. And now the surviving spouse doesn't know how to log into anything. And so we get to just sit for 5 hours with that person and walk through. You gotta ask for this email and then you gotta put in that confirmation and And so we don't have the time to do that regularly. But if we have a person down the road who's dedicated to it, maybe there's more room, more capacity. So that's why that one was in there.
Okay, thank you, yeah. And then one other quick question on target populations. I understand all of the populations that are there, and I know you probably named, 20 others, right? So it's those hard choices you were referring to. How do the elderly, the senior population fit into that kind of rubric?
That's a great question. So right now, the seniors are primarily served through our health and wellness specialty rather than a target population.
Okay.
We did think about seniors quite a bit when we were forming that list. And what we found in Central Oregon, and it's probably true in other places, but when you say senior, that includes a wide range of abilities and income levels and races and education. And so what we found is if we know that we're serving low income and we know we're serving disabilities, we know we're serving BIPOC, we will probably cover the seniors who do need help in those other target populations. And then there are seniors who are very active, very affluent, and they will be covered with our Readers Advisory and our business and nonprofits and other things like that. So we're finding that there's needs and then there's identities. And is it an identity that creates the barrier or is it a need? And it's been a real interesting balancing act. I think we still have a lot of learning to do about it.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I so enjoyed getting to come on Friday. Thank you again for the
Aaron came
opportunity.
to our team meeting to show us all sign language so that we could.
Yeah, it was such a great opportunity. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask about, you mentioned early on about the social emotional skills and school readiness in response to COVID. Are you still seeing some of those gaps? Are you seeing the gap maybe slowly close? How do you feel that has changed in the last couple of years?
That's a good question. I feel like in the early learning realm, so that 0 to 5, we're not seeing it as much there. It's still definitely a factor in the tweens and teens. I mean, they were the ones who I think, we're hit the hardest. So that's why I think Dungeons and Dragons and things like that is so important because it's helping kids remember how to do relationships again. Yeah. What about you? What's your experience with what do you think?
No, my oldest child is 12, so they were in first grade in 2020.
Right.
And so first grade, second grade, third grade, all were impacted. And my spouse gets to do the Wednesday night Dungeons and Dragons, and it is a battle every Wednesday night that dad gets to go to Dungeons and Dragons and that they're in a teen at Dungeons and Dragons in Redmond. And so it's a great moment. Yeah, I'm gonna brag a little
I can't
bit.
wait to hear what character you got.
Yeah. And we actually had a big discussion on whether or not I could talk about the teen council because I felt like I couldn't, like, you should go do the teen council because your mom's on the board. But, yeah, no, I can see that, like, it's the 12-year-old compared to the 8-year-old.
Right, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder what will happen when, well, more of them are now, but when they're in college and then when there are employees. Yeah, what will the recovery have been like between them now? Yeah.
The other, could I ask one more quick question? So we're hiring these people with expertise and they're developing expertise in their job. And how does that get transferred to the rest of the staff? Do they do
Yeah.
training?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. I meant to mention that. So for example, in February, this team, the community librarian team, will be doing about 2 to 3 weeks worth of staff training. So as people are getting ready for central library and just all moving into different spaces together, we have a whole series, thanks to Sara, our learning and development manager. She's been setting the schedule for us. And so each of these specialties is going to become a training session. There's one on readers advisory, there's one on reference behavior, there's one on law. And there's even one on our early learning discovery spaces, one on our teen spaces. So yes, all of that is coming out as staff training.
Okay, because it's just like that expertise loads them up so much and they're only one person, so, right.
Yeah.
That's great, that's being shared.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions? That was a great presentation.
Thank you, Sara.
Right. Next up is Greg.
I'm curious. I'm over here in the corner. There you go. Pop up there. Yeah.
Come on
A
down.
little easier to see. See you. So good evening. Good to see you. So. Remember, just going through where we're at, right now, and you can probably see it in the report of a lot of the focus is, of course, on central library and what's happening there. It's probably, I'd say easily 90% of all of our focus at this moment. Our schedule is tracking as planned, truly in one of the heaviest workloads and kind of stressful, hectic times as Kirby works to get to a completion of construction, get to a TCO for occupancy and substantial completion of their work. And that's all happening this month. We're just 3 weeks away from that. And then we roll straight into the next phase of all the FF&E and getting that going, as well as the move of DPL and a ton of staff members and all the departments and set up. So, I think overall the plan is working out. Schedule's not changing. It's moving forward. It takes a lot of effort on the team's part to really massage that. I think a lot of planning has gone into organizing everybody and making sure that people know what they're doing and how we're going to mix together. Is come 1st of January, it's a whole new group and it really gets put in there. From a construction activity standpoint, Kirby's really down to final details, punch lists, inspections and stuff. Commissioning have been going on all month with the city, with a commissioning agent, and the walkthroughs, punch list is really going back through the project and looking at it, make sure that the work is completed at an acceptable level and what things we want corrected and everything. So the architects are really busy, as well as DPL, every week for about the past 4 or 5 weeks, walking different spaces and checking them out. And so that whole process is really coming along well. I think that we'll transition appropriately as we planned. and it'll all start up again as we start to move in. I could say all of our vendors for the FF&E, the furniture, the shelving, are ready to go. We haven't had any issues with any of them saying they're gonna be late or anything, you know. Our John Grave has got his artwork completed. It's ready to start hanging up in the beginning of January, and we'll see, there's like 6 different vendors that all show up on January 5th. And it's gonna be a real busy time, so. The schedule is in really good shape. Downtown Bend is the other activity, and it's really working through the planning stage of getting ready to start that construction activity come March. We spent a fair amount of time this past month really talking about how we're gonna transition out of downtown Bend being a fully operational and stagger the, drawdown out of there and move out. Run the lobby service for a certain period and literally an overlap with Kirby where they're slowly moving in and getting started to go construction, but can't really go full bore until we're fully vacated. And that's almost a full month to 6 week process, and really getting that worked through as we've had this kind of 9-month period with Kirby and our design team to really prepare for starting construction. And the goal is to build out downtown Bend as quickly as possible and get it reopened as quickly. And we have a fairly aggressive schedule on that part. So there's never really any let up as we continue through. But we're really taking a good hard look at the construction schedule right now with Kirby. We'll be analyzing that over this next month and a half or so. I'd like to update our master development schedule by the end of January. In February, we'll be talking about that so that we're really making sure that we're planning out how we're going to execute downtown Bend as we come out of Central. A little bit of what kind of looking at is how well, we're transitioning right at the new year in a holiday season. And downtown Bend does the exact same day. First Monday of the new year, we go from construction to move in and FF&E. And from a timing standpoint, is that the right thing to do? So we're really going to take care of that. With the holidays and this time of year, there's just a lot more added stress on everybody to be doing it at that time. So we want to make sure that's the right thing to do. But what we want to do is set that timeline and that thing. If we're going to make adjustments, we want to do it here in the next couple of months so that we can really say, okay, here's what the next year and a half looks like. Because there's a lot of change that's going to happen in the district with opening up Central, getting everybody moved over there, and then still wrapping up downtown Bend. You always get project fatigue at the end. Well, we've been constantly starting at end, and so by the time we get to downtown Bend, there's going to be a lot of project fatigue at the beginning. And so that's something I think that just have to be aware of and really think about how that's going and how we keep that momentum into that project and continue on. So, but overall schedule still in good shape, not seeing any major things that are problems, but things that we may want to think about making adjustments to make things work a little bit smoother. From the budget standpoint, there was only one adjustment that we did this past month, and that was on Central, and it was moving some construction dollars from contingency up into the construction budget, and there's a separate board authorization that we'll go through on that. But overall, on budget as a whole, really going through a full assessment right now, as we're trying to close the construction on Central. That's got a lot of attention, really looking at how we're wrapping up construction costs. That's the largest single component of any one project is construction costs. So we really want to see how we're doing there.
But overall, still looking at what little things we have in each of the projects and where we sit on them, how downtown Bend is kind of like shaking out. Is there anything new there? Nothing is jumping out at the moment, but it's part of just the overall update. I want to finish that up here ideally by the end of January. It's usually January or February. I'm targeting end of January that we have that update. One of the things we noted in the report, was we got the arbitrage report, and that's in review. We'll have actually a lot more insight to that in January. That's going to help us look at what does that tell us and where are we at? And that's really the evaluation of the earnings and what does that mean relative to tax liabilities and those. And so that coupled with just a fresh evaluation of all of our budgets will be what's coming up. So there won't be probably any changes coming up out of December when we meet in January. It's really going to be more in February that I see things like that coming up. So I think from that standpoint, the budget is really fairly static, moving right along. No other real surprises. And the adjustments that we did with Kirby on the construction, we'll go through it a little bit. We're really anticipated, just hadn't gotten to them yet. And it's a lot focused on what happens post-construction and how much support we're gonna need to really take us all the way through folding. And which it's a big effort. So we have a lot going on. So that was something that we really spent time working through with them and their team to come up with a good strategy of how we do that. Procurement, there's no real changes. There's been, certain contracts and change orders process, but nothing real big. On insurance, nothing changing, but have had a number of conversations with Brown, the district's broker, as we transition out of construction and we move out of builder's risk insurance being our primary insurance coverage, is how do we then transition back into district's normal property coverage for central, and how that's covering all of the activity that's going on, and do we have everything in place? And so a lot of it they've looked at in the past, but I asked them to do a fresh assessment to make sure that, hey, don't want to be missing anything, want to know, because we're putting in place another $15 million worth of product and work in furniture and shelving and collections, and it's not a small number. And so it's one of those things, it's like, hey, still want to make sure that we're managing our risk for the district. And so that's going on. We'll have an update from them. I'll have that probably in the January report, if anything, but the latest they told me was that they didn't have any concerns, but that they were double checking everything. So it's just a kind of a checkup. The design and construction section, there's not a lot happening there because it's all about finishing the work and getting those things complete and really ready to move into the next phase. And even on downtown Bend, we finished the design revision that we implemented to redo the children's area in the first floor and some of the shelving, and that's all been issued. It's going through a city plan review, and Kirby, as well as Space Saver and Pacific WR, all of our major vendors that were impacted, are all reviewing that. Just make sure we've captured all the work, get it properly contracted with subcontractors and vendors, and assess any of the schedule impacts that it may have. And that has to do with downtown Bend. Okay, how is that going to all flow back into our schedule and get that incorporated? So I think from that standpoint, there's very little design type work, and it's all about execution at this point. So it kind of hits most of the report, on the financials. We're really marching through payouts are progressing and going on through. So I don't know that there's a lot there that is new or different. And so we'll be, you know, with updating our budget, we'll also be updating our cash flow, which to try to time it to then work in for district's budget activities, and, you know, following right behind it. Questions on anything?
Great news.
Yeah.
Everything continues to move on and move along. And it makes sense what you're saying about that time frame. When you were talking about everything kicking off on January 5th for Central, I thought, oh, isn't that nice? It's like after the holidays. And then I thought, oh, no. Yes.
Yeah.
You live and you learn. So why would you repeat the same thing twice?
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn how much that extra stress level and workload
Yeah.
gets added in a normal time of rest and relaxation at the end of the year.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love how we've learned as we've gone. And I feel like, you know, now we're entering the biggest move. You know, we're entering into all these things that are gathering together, all these lessons we've learned from the smaller branches and from the construction of Redmond. And so, yeah, we are at the peak of our learning, but we are also probably at the peak of our fatigue. So
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't actually put noted a lot in the report was the closure of East Bend and the planning and the effort that went in by the team. It went really smoothly to shut it down, get everything emptied out, to get the space back ready, to get it in a condition to turn it back to the landlord and to move everything out. It said a lot about all the effort team puts forth in that pre-planning does pay off. And it was small compared to what we got to do over the next 4 months, but definitely a good learning curve how to get there. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got
so like I said, there was one executive summary there for board action, which is it's increasing the authorization level on the GMP, the contract for Kirby on Central, and it increases 370,000 is the increase amount. Part of it is, and some of the backup you can see behind there that I included. The change order that's going through to Kirby is actually higher than that, and we just had prior authorization and we hadn't been ready to issue it out. And so we've been working with Kirby over the last few months and to really come up with a plan of how they support the operation as we go from construction all the way through opening. So this really addresses their costs, their staffing and costs from 1st of January through the end of June. And they probably there's about 10 management people out actively on their site, as well as anywhere from another 10 to 20 tradespeople that will be out on the site at any given time. And so we literally walk through what happens with each person and what's their involvement and how do we go through it. And we literally had a conversation today about one person that we thought would transition out sooner and said, now we really need them to stay at least another month because her role and her knowledge are so critical to the actual startup of DPL's operation of the building. And so it's a fluid thing, but it developed a plan. And so that's what drove this cost. Like I said, the funds came out of the construction contingency line item within the project. So it's dollars that, in my mind, I've anticipated, hey, we're going to spend them at some point. And this was the point where it's ready to get this processed and into their contract. The overall analysis the dollars of what we're doing in their budget also addresses a certain amount of how we're closing out subcontracts. Costs that are coming in from that as we wrap those up, and also as we look at things that we're already starting to identify, we want to make this adjustment or this adjustment. As you finalize the building and then you start looking at it, you see things that you like or don't like, and you realize, hey, this isn't gonna work, we've got to make a change. And so some of that's been factored into their overall forecasting and our planning where this goes. I would say this probably won't be the last one, you know, as we work through and finalize all of those. But this really gets us set up with their contract for them to just roll right in and be supporting us going through. So I don't know if there's any particular questions about that authorization.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The added cleaning amount, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So it's, one of the things we found is that the janitorial services that DPL will normally employ is cleaning and operating function in the building, and they're really good at that. And we have construction cleaning companies. We currently in their contract is a construction cleaning company that comes in and cleans all of the interior. They also do all the windows, exterior, and that kind of thing. And as we go through the process of all the vendors coming in, it's just a large volume of trash that generates and needing to reclean. And so we've had them budget an additional almost 2 cleanings of the building. The other is we're going to go through, we clean all the windows and we'll re-clean them at least once or twice more before opening. And so it kind of sheds a bit of burden off of DPL and Robert and his staff to try and take on that kind of major cleaning, and keeps it with our construction staff.
Okay,
And so that's one of those things that they'll support.
perfect. That makes sense. Yeah, thank you.
And we actually lean on Kirby for a number of things, dumpsters and a lot of that kind of stuff that they can get in large volume and help manage. So that way it hopefully lessens the load on staff to focus more on library functions and not move and construction functions.
Perfect. They too will be busy over the holiday.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I would authorize the library director with signing authority up to $91,234,517 for the KNCC Central Library Construction Contract and change orders.
Rebel second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Good luck with research.
Yes.
So Todd, do you want to introduce this next one on monitoring report on communication and support?
Yes, so this is my favorite monitoring report because it is the one you have. And the board set this up many years ago where they wanted direct inspection. So they didn't want me to come in and say, here's what I think's happening. And especially with communication, you see firsthand how that's working. And so that's what this is. We actually have 3 different ways to monitor. One is a report from me, another is this direct inspection, and a third one is an external view. A good example of that is having the auditor come in, or we've been doing every other year, having an external look at the director position, and then kind of a 360 look for the board. So there you are. So I'll hand it over to you. It's your chance to kind of look at this and see how's it going, and I'll leave it with you.
So in the past, years ago, this was one where the director would tell us how he was doing, you know, which I think the board has some responsibilities here, and this is one of them. We don't, I think one of the big things that our management consultant in the past has emphasized, as a board members, we don't want to be surprised by things. We don't want to walk into a meeting and be blindsided, either by what's happening in the buildings, what's going on, what the chatter around the communities are, or personnel situations, anything. We don't want to be surprised because we want to be prepared and be able to do the best job we can do as board members. So a lot of this is, how do you feel like it's been going? Do you feel like you've been well informed? Do you feel like Todd has done a good job at meetings and between meetings, giving us the information that we need to make good decisions? And do you feel comfortable in asking for more information? And when you have asked for more information, have you gotten more information? So it's all of those things. So I think we just go around the room and kind of do a little bit of a round robin, and any constructive criticism you have, or any, you know, anything that you have questions about, let's raise them now. This is a part of that component of, we evaluate Todd's job performance once a year. But we actually evaluate his job performance each month. And this is a big one. So, Laura, do you want to get started?
Absolutely. I think as the newest, or one of the newest board members, but I've been pleasantly surprised, nothing but impressed about the level of communication. And I feel that it's been very professional and yet approachable. Feel very comfortable talking to you, coming to you with questions. I never feel surprised by anything that's coming up at the meetings. I just really appreciated your level of professionalism and communication. Easy pass.
Yeah. Erin?
Yeah, I would agree. We get the board packets early, so we have time to go through them in advance of the meeting. So there's never a surprise when things are coming up from the community, whether it's emails or Reddit threads. We're getting notice of those, so we have time and your responses, as well as Todd, your responses. When we have had opportunities to meet with the public in response, like we did earlier this year, I've appreciated those. I think maybe my only piece of feedback would be, we had some of those meetings. I know you met with all the staff, maybe circling back to some of those. I think it's been 6 months, and I think there's some of that still ongoing, maybe just some updates. After that's been ongoing, and I know there's some resolution, but I kind of feel like I would like to hear updates as that unfolds.
Good.
But yeah, I think
We have some updates.
awesome. But I definitely feel that communication is great, and that it's always, a phone call or an email is always welcome, and I would never be interrupting your day if I had a question, which I appreciate.
That's it.
Well, I'm just gonna echo what's been said so far. I've been happy with all of the communication, and anytime I have a question, usually because maybe I'm like impatient, I haven't heard what the update is, what the latest is. I reach out to Ann or Todd, and always get a response back about that. So that's been adequate for me. So good work.
Yeah. Michelle?
I appreciate your communication. I think the thing that I would highlight is it's easy to bring good news to people, and there's a lot of great news happening at the library, and I love hearing all of it and appreciate that. But I think you're also equally good at bringing tough information to us as well. And I think that is a real measure of just the transparency and the completeness of the communication that you have with us too. So I think you're doing a great job. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And it's always good to go last because, because you've said everything. And I guess my one little piece, and it's something that you all will learn about as you become board president, because, you know, that
You can't do this forever.
I can't do this forever, right, exactly.
Please.
But being the point person for answering those letters, I appreciate Todd's availability to work through those, because I do not do those in a vacuum, and whoever is board president should not be doing those in a vacuum. We want the messaging from the district to be complete and accurate and consistent across all the messaging that we do. So Chantal and Todd are always really good about providing me with the information that I need to answer those letters, and also check over what I've written and, you know, massage it a little bit, and so that we provide people with the best possible information. And Todd's always super available and really helpful in that effort, and just in all things. A good functioning board communicates well together, and I think we've really got that with this group, and it's that good flow of information from staff to board is really essential. So, yeah, great job.
Yeah, I always go on, what would I want to know if I was a board member?
Right.
And usually try to keep that in mind when issues are coming up, or just something happens that you want to make sure you're aware of.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion, and we'll feel inclined to do that.
I move that the library district is in compliance with communication and support to the board executive limitations policy.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. So next up is an item that we added on the discussion of temporary services in Bend. And when we got the letter that the gentleman had appeared tonight, we had a discussion about that, and Todd agreed to do a little, you know, kind of analysis of what the choices are, because obviously the board, I mean, the staff has been discussing this in detail. But this is also a public service decision that also is a board responsibility, for us to provide some direction on, as far as what we think the appropriate thing is too. So, Todd.
Yeah, so as you'll see, I don't have a sample motion here, because this is a tough one for us. It's not a cut and dry issue. So I just want to go over some of the things, basically try to lay out some facts for you and kind of give you enough information to try to give us some direction. A couple of things happened when we did the remodels in La Pine and Sisters in Sun River and Redmond. We did provide temporary services. We got a trailer in Sisters and Sun River. In La Pine, we rented out a space, which immediately had a car drive into it. We didn't have anything, so we actually didn't provide much service there. And then Redmond, we rented out a space. After doing all that, we realized, with direction from our bond counsel, that actually didn't qualify under bond funds. So that all came out of the general fund, which is a concern. That was a hit to us. The next piece was looking at, in each of those communities, it was making sure that we had a presence in the community. And so that's one that we've been looking at for Bend, is going on the supposition that the central library is a service that basically is your temporary library. And so that's a piece that I can say we can do anything with money. And so that's a piece that I wanted to share with you. One piece that we've been looking at is if we did a temporary service, there's a couple of challenges. It's much more difficult than it sounds. So setting up, just going and getting a book is very involved. We need to have the IT infrastructure in order to make it happen. We need to have staffing in order to help with that. And the logistics of moving things around. And I just put that out there because what I'm going to talk to you about is a level of service that we think is doable for us. Doing things like moving to an offsite or going to a partner agency. I don't feel like we have the capacity to do that at this point. So the piece that we've been trying to investigate for you is a place that we do have is this building. And it's obviously near the downtown Bend Library. And what does that mean? So some positives there are if we did do something, we would recommend doing something pretty simple, which would just basically be a holds, pick up, and book drop off. Not trying to recreate a library, but really just trying to provide some basic services to connect with people. There are some financial impacts with that. That would be at least 2 or 3 staff position or time that we were not anticipating, that we would either need to hire more people or stretch our resources with the central library. Other aspects are, and when I'm throwing these out there, they're all doable. But a good example is with the remodel of the downtown Bend Library, that was going to be shutting down the network operations center, which means there isn't internet access here. We can overcome that, and at a cost which we assume would probably be about $10,000 to move the internet line over here so that we could actually provide services. There is some savings in the fact that we are still connected with that vendor, and so we would have been paying some of those fees anyways, but that move would be so much. There are some concerns just about the accessibility, because basically we'd be looking at this room. Greg has checked in with our architects to kind of take a look at this. So what I'm going to ask, and I haven't even heard what they come back with yet. So we'll look at that. I do want, and this is one I just want to throw out there. It's not, nobody in the public is going to like this argument, but I think it's a reality that we need to have. And I have been going on and checking at different times of the day on Google Maps to see how long does it take to get from downtown Bend to the central library. And it basically, will surprise you, but it's 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes, and actually today at 5 o'clock, it was 13 minutes. Just to give you context, to get from the current Redmond Library to the Redmond Design Center, where we had temporary services there, that was 8 to 9 minutes. The estimate for buses from downtown Bend to the central library is 26 minutes. In Redmond, it was 35 minutes. So that just kind of gives you a scale. A real challenge for us in Bend is just that concept going from east to west seems to be a real big, I've lived here, I have the same feeling. Somebody says, can you come meet me over here? And so I get that. So those, I don't want to belittle anything, but that's a challenge. And for each of our communities, we've had to make some type of sacrifice during that time. Other real factors, and this is a poor excuse. I would not put this out to the public, but it's a little bit of what Greg just said about construction burnout. We are 100% focused on getting into that central library, and that's a big challenge for us right now. One concern we do have is taking away from that by adding a different service that we'd be doing. And that's what we'd really like to do, is be able to 100% focus on our staff, getting them trained, getting them comfortable in that place. So that's another piece. Let's see, I'm trying to see. Some expenses we'd be looking at, or just the cost of courier coming back and forth to bring materials around. And let's, again, another piece that I think is going to be really important for you to know is just what are the possibilities here? So can you share with us what you've heard from the architects?
Yeah, I think, and a little bit is also what we were planning to do with this space, and the parking lot. So as part of how we're doing downtown Bend is that we're basically giving Kirby all of the parking lot. Other than there's an access easement back here for adjacent neighbor. But they were gonna take all of that, and they are also using this space as their construction office. And it meant that we didn't have to bring in trailers. They could use the parking lot for construction parking and material storage and equipment storage when they do need equipment. A certain amount of work we're gonna do on the outside of the building will mean we gotta bring in and boom lift and stuff. If we are using this space for a different purpose, we can have Kirby use other parts of the building. But we would want to open up part of this parking lot because the handicap stalls are here. What that does is then we would tell Kirby, you can no longer enter off of Wall Street, you can only enter off the back street here. And so that will drive more construction traffic deeper into the residential zone and entering back there and exiting, where right now they can go in and out and kind of balance that. So that's our current plan on the site and how we'd use it. Relative to the building, so we talked with our architect and just had them come in and do their assessment of the building as it is today. And if we wanted to make this change, so none of this has gone to beyond that other than an initial review. So it all needs to be further. The occupancy level of the building is allowable to do this. The condition of the building and compliance, so it's a very old building. And there are a lot of ADA compliance issues and around this space relative to certain aspects of the ramp. Are not, they've been grandfathered in, and because there's not been any change to this building of how it's been used for many years, there's been no requirement to upgrade it. Same with the restrooms, we looked at if you have this and you're gonna allow a visitor to utilize the restrooms, it'd be the two right here, right? Well, they're really not current compliance. And so when you change how you use a building, they did feel that using it in this fashion, we would probably want and need to talk to the city about that. I think that still warrants a little bit more research, and they said that before we absolutely, but the most likely, because one, the city will see it. It's not like they're not gonna notice it.
Well, we don't want to be doing
Right next door.
We want to be above board anyway.
Exactly. So, I think we would have to, and that would then be one of those things that say, well, oh, you're gonna use it like this. So when we literally were planning to do the lobby service as we transition, and we shared that with the city, and they said, we draw up the plans and turn them in for us to approve. So knowing that, I would expect that they would say something similar. We have to just deal with how we handle the hallway out back here because it is normally part of the total exit pathway through the building and controlling if we let people out that door. We don't want them wandering around in, to get into the basement and those things. So, if we make modifications to the building, they felt that would trigger needing to get a permit. It's not a big permit, but it definitely triggers them looking at it. So it's not something that we can just do without taking proper steps and securing. But it does let them then say, well, maybe you do need to do some upgrades, which then also we could start, spending money, open up that. You never know where that could go. So that's kind of the very high level of where it's at, with them just doing a quick review of if we use this space for this purpose.
Are the rules the same for a temporary use as for a permanent use? Like, would they cut us a little bit of slack because this is a stopgap measure?
It's a judgment on the
Okay.
building official that they can look at that. And
Mhm.
so how you're using it, knowing that it's a short time frame now. Our short time frame though is probably a full year. If
Right.
we're doing it right until we reopen, so. Whereas with the lobby service, we're talking about 1 month. And so,
Right,
but yes, it is always up to the building official who
Right.
oversees the building department to make those judgment calls if it's a temporary use.
Mhm. Because like if we're fairly close
Yeah.
and meeting requirements, would it be okay on a temporary basis to not meet
The
their?
building now is an occupancy today,
Right,
and so it's being used, and it's just, it would be used differently. Where you're at inviting people
The public.
up and down this as a primary entrance versus the primary entrance out front.
right. Okay. More comments?
No, I think it's not like I said, it's not a cut and dry. I think just owing to you, like, where do I stand with this? I get all the arguments for how it would be nice to have a service here. My gut tells me that we need to focus on that central library. It's a service where we're gonna be able to provide the highest level of service we can. Any temporary measure is going to be a low level of service, which we've seen. We've seen when we've opened temporary libraries. It's low usage, people are not really happy with what they get, they'll take what they have. We know our usage statistics, for example, in Redmond, we're way low from operating a regular library. So that would be that's where I'm leaning. But again, I'd say this is an issue where you're going to be answering to the voters about why aren't we doing this? And I'm sure the voters aren't going to be concerned about how stressed our staff is or how stretched we are. It's about what about our service. I will say another piece for me is just because I take it to heart when somebody says you're abandoning us. And the reality is we're not abandoning anybody. We're investing a very substantial amount of money to make them have a much better library. And unfortunately, it will be 12 months before they actually get to see the fruits of that. So that's always a piece to remember. It's for a reason. It's temporary pain for a big gain. So that's kind of where I leave it. But I will say, I mean, this is if the board would like to go in this direction, we will make it happen. So that is a piece where I need your input to know what direction we're going.
Can I ask a question? Just because it really is, hearing the gentleman speak tonight and really thinking about that lack of services for people that are used to them being close here, is important for us to consider. And it's important for us to understand. And you're right, it is, you know, a temporary pain or a long-term gain. It's interesting to hear you talk about how far away the Redmond Library was versus their satellite location too. That I think it's helpful information to understand. And I also can't help but think of all the people, you know, that have to travel all the way over to the west side to find us too. To get to the library. Now we're having to go over to the east side, but only for a temporary time. But my question is there any mobile alternative to doing something within the realm of this building that we could utilize? And I have to ask the question because
Sure.
I would love to find a solution that could be workable. And you know more about this than I do, so.
Yeah, I mean, the highest level would be like a bookmobile,
Yeah,
which we just don't have.
yeah. Did you find one? Probably.
Knowing how long it took to get the van, it was about 2 years. I think.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, I mean, we've even talked about that. We have vans, we could
yeah.
drive over, yeah,
Books out the back of the van.
yeah, the hard part is, it's just a challenge. It's a challenge that comes with doing bookmobile services is, kind of what Sarah was talking about, consistency. And knowing where it's gonna show up, when it's going to be there. Being able, again, and then there's services that take staff and effort to bring it there. So we do have challenges with that, just not really having this set up for it. If we owned a bookmobile, that would be a.
And I guess I think could we even get a bookmobile in the time that we would need?
Can we rent a bookmobile?
Yeah.
I know, or they're down that, you know, I think if this had been something we had thought about a year ago or 2 years ago, we might have different options available to us, but right now with
Yes.
downtown Bend closure imminent, that is where I fear we don't have the options that we wish we could have too.
Yeah, and actually, now that you've passed the communication support to the board, I mean, that, you're right. This discussion is something we should have had 2 years ago, not now. Because it really limits what we can do.
But I also think, you know, it's interesting. My first question as we were contemplating talking about this was, is this covered under the bond funds, right? Because that makes a world of difference in terms of what kind of resources we have to allocate towards that.
Right.
But the operations of the library are you guys run a really tight ship because you have to. And so finding extra funding within the library to fund a temporary location to serve a smaller portion, that comes at a cost too.
Right.
And that's the piece of, that's where I said money can make anything happen.
Yeah.
Part of what we talked about in the budgeting period was basically we have been trying to stretch out a 10-year window where you're in good shape before we are in challenge with funds. We would just be shortening that window.
Yeah.
That's what it's doable, but we'd be shortening that window. And that's the piece where I hesitate, because I don't mind shortening that window to provide great services. I'm a little hesitant to do it to provide kind of minimal service that we could do so much more with that money.
Yeah.
Once all the buildings are open.
Yeah.
So that's a.
Can you say
challenge.
again how much of staffing you would need for this proposal?
Yeah, and Lynn helped me out because we were just kind of trying to come up with a dollar figure.
Well, and not even dollars, but was it 2 to 3 positions?
In the temporary locations, we had at least 3 people.
Okay.
And then the supervisor on top of that, so you have a supervisor that will have to split their time between central and this, any kind of temporary service. And I say 3 because depending, even if you open it for like a short period of time, you have to have staff that can cover breaks, that can handle a lunch period, even if it's just for a day or 2. And then if that person goes on vacation or someone gets sick, then you have to sub it from somebody in central. So again, you're pulling resources, staffing resources out of central to do that. So we're estimating it would take about three people bodies and then half of the supervisor's time.
And if we were going down that road, would we hire 3 new positions or take from our current FTE pool?
So that's a good question, because right now we're staffed to run that central library. And we would probably need to look at adding staff.
And it would just be adding them for a year, or would we need them in the year after that?
We're gonna need people when we open downtown Bend.
Right.
So that would just be speeding up
Just doing it.
some of that, yeah.
Is there any flexibility in how we open downtown? Like we talked about having temporary lobby access. Could we do that in reverse? Because we're not opening up a whole new, brand new building, we're just renovating. Could we open up the lobby service again early so that there's still lobby service early?
Less discontinuation.
Yeah.
That probably gets into occupancy permits and stuff like that,
We
doesn't.
have to get that, and the way building is designed to be a very open space. Currently, there's good solid walls to create a little box,
Yeah.
which will have less of. And we will actually be utilizing the front entrance as well as the back entrance very extensively on the FF&E move-in side. Because you gotta bring in that shelving and furniture systems and stuff. And the front entrance lobby is large stores. Now, we do have some access from the back. It would make it a challenge. We would actually have to create, definitely temporary facilities and then tear them back out. I think it would impact us on the schedule and the operational side, because you gotta get everything done to open it, that you're trying to get ready for the balance.
Yeah, I would say it probably would delay the full opening of that building. So that'd be a challenge.
The one thing that I was thinking of, because it seems like the demand is for just pick up and drop off. I mean, we're not gonna be doing programming and all that, obviously, but is there a locker type of alternative
Which we talked about.
that because those actually could be, like in the new, and I always screw up what branch this is in Portland, but we visited one of the new branches that Multnomah County just opened. And they had exterior lockers that were just holds, pickups and drop offs. And, so any investment that we made in the physical lockers, those lockers could be transferred someplace else, like to the exterior of another building if we wanted to do it that way. So is that a possibility?
Well, as a matter of fact, we looked at that.
Glad you asked.
Yeah, one, just timeline, it's
pretty tight.
tough getting that in there. The cost of getting the materials,
Would that cost fall under the bond budget though, if they were eventually going to be moved to one of the locations?
Yeah, you might be stretching that a little bit, but. I see where you're going.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a question to raise, so.
Yeah, I can actually give you our staff analysis of that. There's like, they have pros and cons. We would need to do it quickly.
Yes.
It would probably cost about $20,000. Just for the lockers. I'm not sure how many that is.
Todd, the thing I'd say about the bond funds is we can't capitalize it as something that was covered under the language of the bond.
Right, because we didn't say we'd do it.
Yeah, like where are these lockers going when we're done with them?
Over the downtown?
Well, or on the location could be determined.
So the language of the bond calls for modernization, upgrade, and there was one other element, but it was all specific to the buildings identified.
Yeah.
So I guess the answer that I would give you, and I am not a lawyer,
Yeah.
is that it would have to go into one of the buildings as part of the upgrade of
Right,
that building.
right.
So I just say my assumption from talking with their attorneys that they'd probably say no.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's, yeah, it would need internet access. Well, that would be if it's a kiosk. Again, and then we need staff time to actually sit and figure out how we're gonna do this. And this is, and I'm sorry, this is our challenge right now is we are tapped out. And I hate to keep using that as an excuse, but
that's reality.
this is the biggest project that we have done in this library system in 126 years. And that's, yes. And so I'd want our full brain power going towards that. Yes.
Can I
Yes.
add an element about the lockers? And Lynn will have the numbers off the top of our head, but I believe that on average, we have several thousand holds in the lobby at downtown Bend. The locker systems that I've seen hold a couple hundred. And so they would be full immediately, and we wouldn't necessarily meet the capacity of what is really needed to replace holds pickup for the building.
Yeah, in general, usually lockers are like a good solution.
They're an enhancement to regular library services, right? So most people aren't putting their holds in the lockers consistently. Like a lot of them are coming in, checking out books, browsing, doing other services and using the internal holds lockers. It's usually for the individuals that, know that they cannot come during library open hours.
Right,
that are
which, I mean,
using it.
that's.
But I don't think it can ever be a full replacement for a hold system, especially a hold system for the building of the size that we have.
Do we have any idea how many of our users drive to downtown versus take public transit or walk?
I don't think that's, yeah.
And is that 26 minutes or whatever you said by bus, is that using existing schedules or is that? So, but they are planning to add stops, right?
They were supposed to be adding a route.
Mm-hmm.
So this basically got you to the within walking distance of, that's currently, if you go in Google Maps and you say I'm taking the bus, that it tells you it's 26 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I didn't analyze like which route.
Yeah, but routes will be added when this building is opened, right? About.
They, CET has said that they would be adding a route or extending a route to go past the building. So I don't know how that would affect the time. It may not affect the time that much.
Because I don't think they're at the time we open.
Yeah.
I don't think that route is established. It
Yeah.
has to do with the build out time of Stevens Ranch.
Yeah.
And also down the street from us, all the way around where that new route, it is a new route that will be feeding up and down there.
Okay.
But part of it is just how fast the whole development on the southeast corner down there also comes online.
Right, okay, so it's not gonna be immediate.
Yeah. That was the last thing I heard is that they just hadn't set the timeline on it.
Right.
The route is the coin. It's when will it be activated? There's enough ridership.
Right.
And I would say, I can't give you solid numbers on how people get here. Anecdotally, I would say the majority drive. There are definitely people within walking distance in this neighborhood, they walk. But we can tell by counting the number of bikes out in front of the building, what that looks like. There's usually parking available. And
Bike parking or car?
Bike parking.
Yeah, bike parking.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not car parking.
That is not a scientific study, it's just, I think, just by my direct observation, it seems to be, it's the majority of driving.
And I think it's like an interesting exercise to go through all these different possibilities. Because I think at the end of the day, like, I'm really sad that people that live close to here that wanna go have their experience at the library, in this library, aren't gonna be able to do it for a year. The reality is, the options that we're talking about, which is going through a lot of hoops to open this building up, to not have any programming at all, you just come get your book, and maybe you go potty if you really have to go, and you go.
Right.
Or you go to a locker and you pick up your book, are still not gonna fill that void. We can't fill that void. And it's the cost of what we're trying to do to provide to the whole community down the road. And it is a cost that we can't, we can't remedy that cost. But it's a cost benefit analysis where the benefit is going to outweigh the cost ultimately. But it doesn't mean it comes easy either. That's just my thought.
If I could offer something that my team gets a lot of questions about the building program on outreach, and a metaphor we've been using is to think of it like road construction. It's a pain, but it's temporary. It often means you have to make a detour or a longer trip. But once it's open, it will be a better road and you'll have better traffic flow. That's what's happening with the library. And most people seem to understand it. They're all like, oh yeah, construction. That's just effectively.
Well, and
This
that's-
library's gonna be way better than any
road.
any roundabout.
Well, and the thing, yeah, that is a good analogy, in part because and not only what they're gonna have at the central library, which I think people are really focused on that because they don't really know the scope of the renovation that's gonna occur at downtown Bend. And they are gonna get huge improvements. I mean, of all the projects, downtown Bend is one of the ones that I'm the very most excited about, because I think it's gonna be huge for people's enjoyment of that space and the usability of that space. And so, it's hard to tell people it'll be worth the wait, because I am really sensitive to the pain that people are gonna have by not having a library that they've used for years open. It's hard to balance that.
Yeah, yes. We felt the same thing in Redmond, and that was,
Right.
the good news is our temporary library for Bend is way better than the temporary.
Yeah, I mean, so it will also drive people to, they might not
Yes,
go to the central library, but now, because they have to go to the central library to get their books, maybe they will explore that space more and determine that the journey over is worth it, even if they're coming from this part of town.
and that is a side benefit. We really would like people to experience, because if you don't go into a building, whatever's in that building is what you assume's in there. And we
Right.
really want to encourage people to check it out, so.
Well, what are the thoughts of the board?
Yeah.
I think I kind of said my thoughts already. I don't think it's a feasible option for a lot of reasons, the economics of it. And I know it's really hard to see the library building these big, beautiful new buildings and not understand that's a different bucket, and the library operations bucket
Right.
it does not have the funding necessarily to do that. But then also, just would it really fill the need that we're leaving during the renovation? So
Right, so
that's just my thought. I've spoken a lot though, so I welcome everybody else's thoughts too.
Well, I think you captured it really well, Michelle. Really trying to get at the heart of what somebody is missing and wanting. And the solutions that we have in front of us are not going to address that.
Yeah.
And so, as well, I feel concerned about the possibility of having an added construction project on the list. trying to make this building be usable. I think about the neighbors and the potential impact of moving the construction traffic through the neighborhood.
Right.
That's not something that's expected. And so those are a couple of things that, I'm thinking about. I'm also thinking about, even if anecdotally, that likely most folks coming to this location are driving and do have the ability to drive to the central location. My concern would be more for those who are not able to drive. I didn't know if we'd be having a chance to talk at all about a recent email about delivery service to people who can't leave their homes. That's really, I think, also time well spent discussing that type of issue. So anyways, I agree with Michelle.
Yeah, I think knowing that we can't spend bond dollars on temporary services is a pretty big factor, and that, yeah.
I want to acknowledge that it will be painful to lose that accessibility. But I also agree, if this was coming from bond fund, I would have a much easier time supporting it. Given that these are general funds that are divided amongst the entire county, I think in the spirit of being equitable, it doesn't make sense from a fiscal perspective to spend the money on this temporary space that is not going to meet all the needs. And especially given the parity with the temporary distance in Redmond, I don't think we can really make the case that there's a true need for it beyond just that pain, which I think is valid. And I would also just add, from a personal note, even living in Sisters, I drive into the Redmond Library because it's so beautiful. And I think, that's a 30+ minute drive for me, but it's worth a voyage to go to a beautiful new building. And my hope would be that the residents here, when they make that trip to the central branch, they will get to experience something like that and feel that it's worth that longer trip, but it will be worthy of that drive. So, or bus ride, or however they choose to get there.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, no, that's really true, right? It's hard for me because this impacts so many people, comparatively to the rest of the projects that we've done. The population of Bend is half the county, and so it's hard that this impacts so many people, and it's unfortunate that we didn't have the conversation 2 years ago, because again, I think these buildings are the start of the services that we want to provide and want to push out into neighborhoods and to expand our reach into the community. And we could have used this as a pilot for some of that work had we been ready, but realistically, just getting these projects off the ground and up and running, even if we had thought of it 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have had the bandwidth then to do a good job and to really consider what we wanted to do. The staff has been stretched so thin with all the careful attention and planning that they have done on each of these facilities. It's amazing to me, the level of detail and the excellence of the work that they've done. So to say, we should have done more. It's like,
the one thing that gives me, it puts us in very strong financial position to not do it. And that means, which is really important for when the building's open, because we want to make sure we're serving, because that's could be a future impact that we're not thinking of, is are we gonna have to shorten hours at downtown Bend 5 years from now?
Yeah, because
we did a short-term piece, and I'd hate to see that happen. So I feel much more confident saying we can continue on the road we're going right now. It will it's definitely going to impact people, but we will be able to have strong services going forward.
Right. Yeah, I think that clarity of focus, as you said, I mean, it's gonna take everything we've got to do a great job of buildings and to have everybody be ready and trained and. So there's that also,
Yeah.
so.
And I think you guys have made everything look so easy.
Yeah, right.
It's easy for all of us to be like, Ann, could you do this on the side? But I know that you're like little ducks paddling really, really hard underneath the water
Yeah.
to make it smooth on the top.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think we all wish we could address some well-spoken concerns, but yeah. So does that give you the information that you need?
It does, so
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like we will just continue on as we were doing, yes.
Okay. We do library news, I guess.
Since Betsy brought it up, I should address it, but we do have a homeward bound service, that currently is reaching about 30 people. And I may have mentioned it last time, but unfortunately, it used to be more and we had a lot of deaths in the last year. So it's, yeah, it's talking to the staff that do that, it's something you don't think about. You form that bond with people and it is a population that, anyway, that's a sad part of that job. So that is one that we are pausing services on that while we transition to the central library, because everything that we do there, it's a program that we use staff, we also use volunteers to help with that. And the disruption of moving will be an impact on that until we can get back up on our feet and get running. And that is when it's really interesting. It's not like we just cut that off and said we're not going to do anything. I know the team that works on that has been really looking at what can we do during that time. So we're not completely done with that. But it is going to be a disruption to that service. And I know they've got ideas of things they can do to connect. I'm looking at you because I don't know if you've had any, haven't been involved in any of those. Okay. But anyway, that's a piece that it was just, it meant a lot to me that it wasn't the staff that does that didn't just say like, okay, we're just done with it. It's they really care about those people. So they're trying to figure out ways. Unfortunately, it's a challenging time. Normally what we've done in the past is we might have worked with Meals on Wheels and gotten free books out to people that way. They've lost a lot of their services. So anyway, there are some very painful things that happen when we make some of these changes. The good news is for services like that, once we're up and running in the central library, that will be the last time we're dealing with that. The only real other shift that'll come from downtown Bend is the law library. Because that's where we house the law library. We're moving the books over to Central, so people still have access. It'll be there until we open downtown Bend and they'll come back. There's some digital access, which we're trying out. We have a laptop that accesses some of the databases and we're actually moving that to Redmond. And it'll give us a chance to see how that works there. And those are the two of the big ones. Interlibrary loans will be one that's affected. That will be a time period until we get in there. So those are the big disruptions that will be happening there. But again, that central library will be our central library. So once that's up and running, it's going to be something that's going to, it will allow us to serve in so many ways. So, yeah. Other library news, I had something and I totally forgot what it was, and I feel like we covered a lot of them, so I will stop there. It's
Okay. All right. Okay, do we have foundation news?
Let me see, the foundation actually meets the week after we meet, so it's like 3 weeks old.
Yeah, right.
It's like last year. But one thing that the foundation is working on right now is a strategic planning session. And so they're actually hiring a consultant to come in and kind of facilitate that for the board, for the foundation board, which is exciting. So they're gonna, on their own, be kind of looking at where do we want to go from here. So right now, we're finalizing the hiring of that facilitator, and then we're planning on having that session in March or April. So after we get started in 2026. So yeah, that's what
That's exciting.
Yes.
Okay, any good of the order comments? Laura, do you want to start?
Well, I was not the only one in attendance, but I went to the novel idea unveiling and it was quite a lovely evening.
That's
And
what I forgot to say.
Yes.
But you knew we'd come.
it was well done, so quite fun. Thank you.
I also got to attend the Novel Idea, and it was fun. It was kind of a family event. And then I also got to attend the community librarian staff meeting on Friday and did a little lesson on sign language and deaf community and deaf education and interpreter training, and we covered kind of everything. I think it was a really fantastic morning, and really felt honored to be part of the meeting.
Well, I was very sorry not to be at the novel idea. I had so much fun last year, but I was out of town last weekend. I just wanted to congratulate Robert and the team for a successful audit. That's a lot of work. And I got the budget to look forward to. So, congratulations. I know how much work that is.
I love that, Betsy. I was gonna say something to Robert too, where it's an audit is kind of like a report card on how our entire library system is doing, but that is all managed and overseen by Robert and his team. And you got straight A's on your report card, and we appreciate the work that you do to manage our fiscal matters so well. So thank you. Yeah. And the novel idea was really fun, and it was cute to see everyone. It was, I got to talk with Emily and her husband. I didn't realize they were a library couple. That's so cute. And I got to meet Laura's husband and her daughter too. And it's so nice to put this little humanity to all of it. So, yeah.
Well, I did not get to go to the novel idea. It's the first one I missed, and it was killing me. But it looked like it was a great event, and it is always just the best. I just wanted to say, I appreciate your presentation, Sarah, because I learned a lot, and congratulations on the audit, because that is a huge body of work, and it's months and months and months of work. So in the middle of doing all the other things that you need to do to keep us running. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate this board. I appreciate the good discussions tonight and throughout all of this process. It's really a pleasure to work with all of you. I think the board's functioning at a really good level. So thank you all for your service. And Todd.
Well, I echo all of that. And yes, I really appreciate the discussion, and really the work session. That was really helpful for me. It helped give us a lot of great direction moving forward. So thank you. Thank you for being engaged.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Yeah.